Somewhere in Europe, roughly 40,000 years ago, a Neanderthal woke up. They made a fire. They ate. They looked after someone who was injured, and then they died. Not dramatically, not in battle with early humans, just died. And with them, an entire species ended. We've spent decades imagining Neanderthals as something primitive, something lesser, something we replaced because we were better. That's not quite right. And the actual story is far more uncomfortable than you'd expect. Let's start with what we got wrong. In 1856, workers in a limestone quarry in Germany's Neander Valley dug up a partial skeleton. They handed the bones to a local schoolteacher named Johann Karl Fuhlrott. Fuhlrott looked at the skull, heavy brow ridge, thick bones, unusual shape, and realized he was looking at something that wasn't quite human. Not quite anything anyone had seen before. Scientists named the species after the valley, Neanderthal. And the image stuck immediately. Brutish, stooped, dim. The original skeleton, it turned out, belonged to an individual with severe arthritis and possible rickets. The hunched posture wasn't a species trait, it was an old man's pain. But by the time anyone corrected the record, the caricature had already taken hold, and it shaped everything that came after. Here's what Neanderthals actually were. They lived across Europe and Western Asia for roughly 400,000 years. Think about that number. 400,000 years. Modern humans have existed for maybe 300,000. Neanderthals survived multiple ice ages. They hunted megafauna, mammoths, woolly rhinoceroses, cave bears. With wooden spears, they shaped themselves. They controlled fire. They built shelters. They made tools precise enough that archaeologists spent decades assuming only modern humans could have made them, and they did something that changes everything we think we know about them. They buried their dead. In Shanidar cave in northern Iraq, archaeologists found the remains of at least 10 Neanderthals. One of them, known as Shanidar 1, had survived to old age with a withered arm, a healed head injury, and evidence of severe vision loss in one eye. He couldn't hunt. He couldn't contribute the way an able-bodied member of the group could. And yet his group kept him alive. For years. Whatever Neanderthals were, they weren't simply animals responding to immediate survival pressures. They were taking care of each other. But here's the part that's harder to sit with. By around 40,000 years ago, they were gone. Not slowly. Not gradually over millions of years the way most species fade. Within roughly 5,000 years of modern humans arriving in Europe, Neanderthals disappeared entirely. 5,000 years sounds like a long time. In evolutionary terms, it's nothing. It's a blink. For over a century, scientists assumed the explanation was simple. We outcompeted them. We were smarter, faster, more adaptable. We won. But the evidence keeps complicating that story. Neanderthals had brains as large as ours. In some cases, larger. Their tools in the period just before they vanished show signs of increasing sophistication, possibly in response to contact with modern humans. They were adapting. They were learning. And genetic analysis published in the journal Nature in 2010 confirmed something that rewrote the entire relationship between our species. We didn't just replace Neanderthals. We bred with them. If you have European or Asian ancestry, between 1% and 4% of your DNA is Neanderthal. These weren't two separate streams of humanity flowing past each other. They merged, which means whatever happened at the end wasn't purely war. It was something more complicated, and probably something more painful. So what actually killed them? The honest answer is we don't fully know, but the pieces we have point somewhere specific. Climate was shifting. The ecosystems Neanderthals had hunted for hundreds of thousands of years were changing faster than usual. Their prey was moving, their range was contracting, and at the same time, modern humans were arriving in larger numbers with wider trade networks, more diverse diets, and social structures that could absorb disruption better. Not because we were smarter, because we had more people to share the problem with. Neanderthal groups were small. Estimates suggest most bands numbered between 10 and 30 individuals. When disease hit, or a harsh winter came, or prey disappeared from a region, a group that small had almost no margin. One bad season could end a family line entirely. Modern human groups were larger and more connected. We could weather what they couldn't. Not because we were superior, because we were luckier in our numbers. And this is where it gets quiet, because at some point the math ran out. Somewhere, we don't know exactly where, we don't know exactly when, there was a last group, a last fire, a last conversation in a language we will never hear and can never reconstruct. Researchers believe the final Neanderthal populations may have held on in isolated pockets of southern Europe, possibly in what is now Gibraltar, longer than anywhere else. The rock at the edge of the continent. The last place. And in that last group, there were individual lives. Someone who knew where the best flint was. Someone who remembered what the winters had been like years before. Someone who was good with children. Someone old enough to have seen the world change. We know from the fossil record that Neanderthals experienced grief. They returned to the bodies of their dead. They placed them carefully in the ground. At Shanidar, there is contested but persistent evidence of flower pollen around one burial. The possibility, not yet proven, that someone placed flowers on a grave 60,000 years ago. Whether or not that specific detail holds up, the broader pattern does. These were beings who understood loss. Which means the last ones understood, in whatever way their minds allowed, that something was ending. Here's what we know about their final hours with reasonable confidence. They woke before dawn, the way humans do in cold climates, to tend the fire before it died. They moved through a landscape they knew completely. Every ridge, every water source, every seasonal pattern encoded across generations. They ate what they could find. They communicated. Not in grunts. Neanderthals had the FOXP2 gene, the same gene associated with complex speech in modern humans. Their hyoid bone, the small bone in the throat that supports language, was virtually identical to ours. They spoke. We don't know what they said, and at some point, the last one closed their eyes and didn't open them again. And the species that had survived 400,000 years of ice and predators and everything this planet could throw at them was gone. Not with a war, not with a catastrophe, just quietly. The way most things end. The fire went out. Nobody was left to light it again. We carry them with us. Literally. In immune system genes, in cold weather adaptations, in sequences of DNA we still don't fully understand, Neanderthal biology is active inside you right now. They didn't vanish. They dissolved into us. But there's something the genome can't hold. Whatever they dreamed, whatever they were afraid of in the dark, whatever was said around that last fire, in a language built from 400,000 years of living on this earth, that's gone. And we were there when it ended. Whether we understood what we were watching or not, whether we meant to take it from them or not, that's the part that doesn't fossilize. That's the part we'll never get back.